Oh, hey there. It's me, Josh Ingles. Welcome to Before You Bet on Covers presented by BetMGM. Happy Monday, week 13 in the books. Rivalry week in the books. Conference championship games coming up. Absolutely delighted to have you everybody there in the chat. Jigglypuff. Very happy, man. After a big game in Buffalo last night, is there anything better than watching snow games on TV from the comfort of your own house? No, there isn't. Josh Allen, MVP to the moon right now. Big Mike talking about kicking things. Appreciate it. Drop your best bets today. Let me know how week 13 went. Just tell me some random stuff. What we got going on today. Joe's off. I'm in. We got Brad Powers talking conference championships this weekend. We got Jon Metler, the ass man, coming on talking NFL. He's got, I think, a plus 2,500 SGP for tonight's game. And then some NBA plays. I mean, we're looking at the numbers. It seemed like the world's longest football week last week. Let's be honest. I went 8-4 straight up on this show, over 4 units. The Blitz, almost 11 units in primetime games last week. It was a good week there. There's lots to talk about this week. Rivalry week, Ohio State, Michigan, Georgia Tech. Travis Hunter locks up the Heisman. Joe's Dolphins, still shit. KC, also shit. If you haven't noticed, they are quite fraudulent. Atlanta down, Tampa Bay up. Got to be an argument for Brock Bowers to get that offensive rookie of the year. San Francisco, done. See if Allen MVP and Saquon wins the offensive player of the year battle versus Derrick Henry. He's now a big favorite to win that. Big Tim, talking about that SGP win yesterday. That Josh, winning a bet on that Josh Allen touchdown yesterday is up there in top 5 of my betting moments, just in terms of probability. He was hurt, wasn't going to happen. They were up big. And he somehow throws to Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper throws it to him. The insight for Josh Allen to run towards him and get that ball, incredible. Definitely won't forget that game. So let's get right to it. We got winners and losers coming up, some plays. Jon Metler. Was happy enough to see him over the weekend. We put him on NFL duties. He's been busy watching the NBA Cup, which apparently goes on for 13 months of the 12-month calendar year. How was your NFL Sunday?
Good. My wife was out shopping and I put Christmas lights up in the morning. And like you were saying, I ran a little trick play. She came home. She was like, "Oh, how long did that take?" And I said hours and hours because I was sitting on the couch watching sports and it didn't take hours. It took less than 30 minutes, but I just said it took hours because I didn't want to move off the couch and do more. So
that brings up a really good point. Let us know in the chat. Today's question: what do you do to let people know you've done a lot before the 1 o'clock kickoff? Yesterday, got the old winter tires on the car. Went down to the old man's house. We do it, father, son. We're getting pretty good at it. Probably took 15 minutes. Told my wife it took the majority of the morning. Absolutely. So it looks like got some things done. Always got to extend the time. Tim Powell says no OSU talk. How about that? It is a vet move by Metler. Josh Allen TD might be the play of the year. Hey, back-to-back plays for Josh Allen. Let's not forget what Josh Allen did on 4th and 2 versus Kansas City previous to the bye, which that was it. Like even a call on the game was the play of the year. No, then he outdid himself again. Hope she doesn't watch your videos. No, she barely wants to talk to me enough, not let alone indulge in more of my content. Imagine that. Imagine a wife or a partner just loves you so much, just binging all your content, Johnny. That'd be so nice. Winners and losers. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I try to talk to her about betting, and she's like, I don't understand anything you're saying. So there's not much conversation. There's definitely not watching the show.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, she's not really into the ins and outs of what may not be priced into lines. Winners, losers, let's get to it. Staying positive first. We'll fire these off. I know you want to get to some plays. I know you want Brad coming off that big week, so let's go. Josh Allen and Bills fans, outdoor games are just they're so impressive to watch. And the funny thing is, there was no snow in downtown Buffalo at all. And all of a sudden, they have to ask everybody to pay $20 an hour to come shovel out the snow in Highmark Stadium. It was an incredible game. Buffalo was allowing chunks of yards on the ground, and the CMC injury was probably the turning point in the game, or maybe that fumble on the 1 yard line. I mean, that was pretty much the end of San Francisco season. But Bills fans got to be excited. Back-to-back weeks of over 3 week stretch of absolutely winning. Mac Hollins, Ray Davis, Ty Johnson, Curtis Samuel, and an injured Amari Cooper. He doesn't look that great. Guess what? It's all Josh Allen, MVP all the way. They've outscored Kansas City and San Francisco in their last 2 games, 65-31. Saquon, Vic Fangio. He's now the betting favorite for Offensive Player of the Year. 84 rushing yards in 10 of his 12 games. And what makes him so important to this is Vic Fangio's defense that has finally clicked. Not finally, it's been elite since the 8-game winning streak has started. Number 2 EPA per defense, just behind the Lions. There was talk if they got behind how Jalen Hurts in this offense would look passing the ball. Well, guess what? They didn't have to again. Maybe that point will come, and that will be where we see Philadelphia with their issues. But right now, that defense and that running game is all they need to absolutely run the table. Maybe push for that number 1 seed in the NFC. Finally, 1-score games. There's a lot of 1-score games. A lot. 3 of the 4 over the over the Thursday and the Friday. And then the Sunday, 9 of the 11 games, all 1-score games, 6 decided by a field goal or less. Lots of action finishing. And I don't think, and you'll get to it, Johnny, the Kansas City finish. And I think when we were out at the bar watching it, I think we saw, 26, like the majority of the survivors that were left in the big survivor contest. Obviously, that would be the ultimate sweat.
Yeah, I'll get into my winners here because that was my number 1 was Chiefs Survivor. So we were, like you said, I was in Toronto this weekend. We were at the bar together on Friday watching this game. And Thanksgiving is like its own weekend in Survivor in most pools. We're talking about a lot of people probably saved Kansas City for this spot. You're at home, you're playing the Raiders. Like, it's a great spot for it. And the Raiders probably should have won that game. I mean, the guy missed a couple kicks before that. We don't know how the kick would have played out, but it would have taken out, I think, like 60-70% of the people left in the Circus Survivor we were looking at. So yeah, that was a huge one. If you're a Chiefs Survivor, you barely escaped, and you probably planned all year to use the Chiefs there. Number 2, Evan Ingram. He laid out the defensive back who killed Trevor Lawrence on that hit. I thought that was awesome. That's a teammate. That's exactly who you want in your locker room. That's exactly the reaction you should have when someone takes a cheap shot at your quarterback. I mean, he kind of escalated the whole situation with the cheap shot, but I mean, it's your quarterback. You got to do what you got to do. So I give him number 2 on my winners here. And last one, I think Bears fans, I think it's a winner for you. That blunder at the end of Thanksgiving, that was so bad it got your coach fired. So I think that's a win. I think he messed up so bad. That guy is not the answer as your head coach. He's not the answer with Caleb Williams. I think you're going to see them bring in someone who's maybe previously worked with Caleb Williams or obviously more offensive. I think Ben Johnson's the favorite there.
I don't agree with Thomas Brown being like the number 5. Yeah. Like he was just a passing game coordinator like 3 weeks ago. He's not going from there to head coach.
Yeah, I put them number 3 there because I just feel like you need to bring in someone who directly works with Caleb Williams, and that timeout situation was just so bad. Got him fired, got him out there. And I think that's what Bears fans needed. So I'll put them number 3 on the winners.
Producer Mick wants his Patriots coach fired as well, as you can see in the chat. Let's get negative. Losers. Kirk Cousins is a loser. Coming out of the bye, and that's your performance? Those interceptions were absolutely atrocious. 3-game skid, 36 points scored. The Bucs money is absolutely coming in to win the division. Money's coming in for Atlanta not to make the playoffs. It's almost a coin flip now. And Morris said Kirk is his guy, and there's no move to Penix Jr. right now. Not very exciting times in Atlanta. Finally, as we see in the chat, Ben ain't leaving. So there's a good point in we go back to the coaching stuff. I'm sure everybody wants Ben Johnson to do that job in Chicago, right?
Yeah.
Do you leave? Right? Like, there's always that question, like, you're a great offensive coordinator. Do you go? Can you become a good head coach too? Or does that take away from the situation? Like, not all good offensive coordinators are meant to be head coaches.
I always think about this too, because it's got to be a pretty fun job. Like, you go in, you're with Jared Goff, you have chemistry with him in the offense, and like, you're just calling plays, and you don't have to do all these press conferences as head coach. You don't have to do all those things. Like, it's got to be a pretty enjoyable job to be the offensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions and just keep, the head coaching jobs. They should always, for the most part, they'll probably always be there for him if he does ever want to make that jump. But like, why not just run out this, like what you have going with Lions here? I will say I didn't see him on the odds. I know Covers dropped a graphic with the odds and I didn't go to check. I would be curious, Lincoln Riley for the Bears. I don't know if he's even listed anywhere, but like he went from Oklahoma to USC to be the head coach. Caleb Williams followed him from Oklahoma to USC, and his time in USC hasn't been going as good as they kind of thought it would be. And USC is now in the Big Ten. Like maybe that's not something, the recruiting's different. Maybe something's different. Maybe it's not going as well as he thought. Maybe he jumps to the NFL. I don't know. It's Caleb Williams followed him to USC. So it feels like there's probably a relationship there. Maybe that's something the Bears want. If you're going in on Caleb Williams, someone can look up the odds. I meant to look that up. I was curious to see if he was even on the board for that.
What I'm interested in this week, as the Bears are a 4-point dog in San Francisco, if Thomas Brown is the interim and like it's just so much work to do to call a game and to run both sides of the ball as a head coach. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. You don't want to leave unless you have a good QB. Yeah, he doesn't want to leave. There's like everything needs to align in order for Ben Johnson probably to get out of one of the best situations in all of football right now. Losers. I don't care what you say. The KC Chiefs are absolute losers. They deserve to be. That game, what do you think the chances of that game finishing the way it did, John? They deserve to lose that game. Yeah. Like, this is a team that is like, what's the analogy? Like, they're running like just a regular Joe $10 to $100,000 ladder challenge, and they're winning every coin flip across the way.
They're getting blocked out every hand.
It's exactly, that's what it is. Oh, just keep running it back. Just keep running it back. They should be 6-6. That defense was embarrassed at home on the final drive by Aiden O'Connell, who's coming off a broken hand and back early. Right? Almost lost to Carolina, blocked a field goal versus the Broncos, OT game versus Tampa Bay, the likely touchdown called back in week 1, the Falcons pass interference that they didn't get called in the end zone, the PI they got versus Cincinnati, which was literally the same play. It just seems like, I don't know, how many times can you multiply 5% by half and keep coming out as a winner? And that's what it kind of seems like for Kansas City. Absolutely annoyed. And I don't know, Lou Amarillo and Cincinnati, there's nothing to say. They're 2-6 straight up. The Cincinnati defense, they're 2-6 straight up. When their offense scores 25 plus points, they've given up 118 points in 3 games. The QBs that have beaten Cincinnati, they all have something in common, John. Desmond Ridder, Gardner Minshew, Deshaun Watson, Daniel Jones, Andy Dalton. What do all those QBs have in common? They don't have jobs anymore. They've only beat guys who won't be starters at the end of the year. And it's sad for Joe Burrow, who has MVP numbers on a team that's absolutely fucking embarrassing defensively. And out of the bye, that shit pisses me off so much. You saw it with Kirk Cousins. Out of the bye, that's what you do. You let Russell Wilson throw for over 400 yards and 7.9 yards per play versus an Arthur Smith and Mike Tomlin-led offense. That's rock bottom. Honorable mentions who suck. Matt Eberflus sucks. Aziz Al-Shahir super sucks. Aaron Rodgers. You saw the pick 6, but you should have seen the ball he missed in the end zone before that one. That was an absolute one he missed. And all of a sudden, good kickers and Koo, McPherson, and Justin Tucker can't kick the ball. It's amazing. Kicker yips are going across the NFL. All right. Who's on your loser list, bud?
We're going number 1, Bo Nix, Rookie of the Year, because it felt like he was finally catching momentum and kind of running down Jane Daniels. And then Jane Daniels has a really good weekend, kind of stays in that big minus price. And the second part of that is Brock Bowers, also Friday, like nationally televised game. He also has a really big game. So I feel like once Bo Nix was finally kind of getting that momentum towards maybe pushing to the top of the board, you see Jane Daniels and Brock Bowers both put out really good games. I mean, obviously Bo Nix is playing tonight. He can have a good game himself. 2, you kind of touched on it. I'm going Cincinnati Bengals. They kind of do they not feel like the Lions with Matthew Stafford and Calvin Johnson? You're kind of just wasting it. You have Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and the team's just not good. You have a really good quarterback, really good wide receiver. And It's just not that Super Bowl run seems like a long time ago now.
Oh, it seems like forever ago. The
And
only team that could beat the Chiefs. Yeah, no,
yeah.
not so much.
And last but not least, they won their game. They're 11-1. I'm going Detroit Lions. They just they have a ton of injuries, and I feel like it's not really getting talked about because they are top of the NFC. They're 11-1, and just from like getting the number 1 seed standpoint, wasn't the best week for them. Eagles go on the road, beat the Ravens. Vikings, Sam Darnold leads a last-second comeback against the Cardinals. They're 10-2. So just, I mean, the Lions won. They're a great team and stuff. I just put on the loser thing because so many injuries, and it didn't really feel like the schedule kind of broke their way either in terms of getting that number 1 seed.
Oh, Connor Hartle there in the chat. Going at me. You tell me what you like out of the Chiefs. Tell me, good. Third down offense? Yep, great. I get it. That was a piss poor performance on a short week Friday. And I've seen a lot of them. And I mean, you lose to Buffalo. Okay, bounce back. You almost get beat by Bryce Young. Back-to-back weeks of almost losing versus Bryce Young and Aiden O'Connell. Think about it. Kansas City, joke of a team right now. Rile you up. We got some plays. We got some football today. Denver, Cleveland. Denver's not beating a lot of great teams. But I'm not on the side here. I'm not a sad kind of guy. I'm kind of a guy who likes to go for milestones and alt overs. If you like it over. When I get to your assist prop later for basketball, kind of the same thing. The difference between guys with can get their levels versus guys who have high ceilings and can crush it. And when you're looking at averages, sometimes it's a funny one. So you'd rather like a guy, I don't know, let's say in basketball, Johnny, a guy goes like 2 assists, 3 assists, 7 assists, 8 assists. Wouldn't you rather, I mean, if the average is 4.5 and that's where the market is, wouldn't you rather just go to the 6s and the 7s as opposed to, I don't know, somewhere in that?
Oh yeah, but majority of the time for the assist props you do see, I put out plus prices. I do go for the alts more than the the normal minus prices because, like you said, if they're going to go for the most part, they're going to get it. They're going to get it. So
ceiling guys, that's where we are. Jordan Akins, who number 2 tight end, Cleveland. Let's go 30 plus 310. Like I said, high ceiling guy, 30 plus yards in 3 of his last 5. 3 catches, 4 targets for 38 yards. Pittsburgh. Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah, it was also a terrible game for passing. Market has been climbing. The Blitz released it at 11.5. Projects for 26. He's the number 2 tight end, but they're using 12 personnel at 42%. 22, 23, 24%-ish targets per route run. Not a bad spot. His TD is live at plus 900. First TD, 45-1. If that's something that entices you, that's where it is. Massive target, 250, 6'3". I mean, obviously that Cleveland offense pass rate is up through the roof. And then one more on the other side of the box. They can't just have action on one side. Von Vele over 34.5 receiving yards. I was thinking about hitting the ladder, hitting the 50, but I'll just go here with this spot. Same thing. Another ladder potential, 66 and 80 yards in back-to-back weeks. His role is growing. The guys behind him, Humphrey, Franklin, and Mims, those are guys who he could take away snaps from right now. Running as the number 2, injury to Cleveland's safety and Juan Thornhill. A lot to like in the spot as Bo Nix continues to look like a great passer. Johnny, bring us the goods here, bud. This is a big one.
Yeah, I'm pinch hitting here in the NFL segment, so I didn't really want to pretend to be something I'm not. So I was like, I'll go with the more fun entertainment bet here. I went Jameis Winston. So it's an SGP, Jameis Winston, 300 plus passing yards, Jerry Jeudy, 100 plus receiving yards, Jerry Jeudy anytime touchdown, and it's 25-1. The basis of this bet more was working off of Jerry Jeudy. I think his total was saying about 57.5. There's projections about like 73, 74 was kind of what I was seeing. So this is also a revenge spot for Jerry Jeudy as well. He's going back to Denver. That's where he spent his first couple of years. And these two, as Jameis Winston has been starting, these two have been working in sync really, really well. Jerry Jeudy's having very big games with Jameis Winston as his quarterback. And you're just kind of talking about the alts there. I mean, Jameis Winston is that like boom or bust. It's like, hey, 300 plus yards or like 400 yards on 47 passes, or he might throw for 200. So, I mean, it's 25-1 for a reason. I like the Jerry Jeudy thing. So I was like, I'll throw the Jameis Winston primetime 25-1. Let's get it.
Yeah. 227 yards coming out of the bye at New Orleans. That was indoors. And I mean, when you go 6 catches for 85 yards in that Pittsburgh game, like, let's be honest, that should have probably been a 100-yard game in any other condition. No?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. They've let Jameis, but Jerry Jeudy doesn't have many touchdowns. But like when you're a 3-8 team, and like this guy has an opportunity, he's one of your best receivers. He has an opportunity for a revenge spot. Why would you not run a play if you get down in the red zone to get him a touchdown? It's not like you're 10-2. You're trying to get a number one seed. And you're going to run the most efficient play. If I was a coach, why would you not like help Jerry Jeudy kind of get that narrative thing? I was also thinking it from that perspective as well.
Gotcha. Like it. I mean, Nick Chubb did find the end zone quite a bit, but he struggled before last week's game. All right, Johnny, that's where we are. We'll keep an eye on that plus 2,500. I'm actually pretty surprised at some of the correlation between passing yards, receiving yards, and TD.
And it's 25.
Yeah, 100 yards. Sometimes the 100 yards almost guarantees the touchdown in a spot where it shouldn't be priced in. But that is a big number. I appreciate it. All right, thanks for helping me out early. I'm going to bid you adieu. Good luck today. We're going to get you back for NBA right after Brad, so stick around, bud, because the Brad talks get loud here when we run on. All right. This is my attempt. College football. Brad Powers, the man himself. I have to fill in for Joe after what must have been. You have to tell me, like, what rivalry week last week, on a scale of like 1 to 100, how wild was that? Like when my own mom, when I go to her house yesterday, she's like, "Did you see the Georgia Tech game?" Never heard her talk about college football.
Yeah, 8 overtimes. Aided by the new college football overtime rules where you just go for 2 starting in the 3rd overtime. But that one was wild. To answer your question, I don't know if it's 100, but I'd rate it a 90. Had Georgia Tech won the game, I'd probably put it, a couple points maybe higher. But it's kind of what you expect. It's tough picking. There's going to be an upset or two on a rivalry weekend. Your guess is as good as mine as to which one it's going to be. I did not see Michigan beating Ohio State. I thought Ohio State had all the motivation, and I did not think this year's Michigan team was capable of pulling the upset. And then you look at the box score and see Michigan's quarterback throw for 62 yards and 2 interceptions. If you would have given me that stat line from the Michigan quarterback and asked me, who won the game, I would have bet my life on Ohio State. So wild weekend. We're in store for a wild playoff. We're in store for a wild conference championship week. So just when you think it's the old WWF Roddy Piper, just when you think you know the answers, he changes the questions. That's kind of college football in 2024.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Ray Dace, head coach, Ohio State, yes or no?
It's a tough one. I don't think if he loses in the playoffs, I think there's a chance that he could get fired. I think the more reasonable thing when it comes to Ryan Day is I could see him leaving for another job and kind of a soft landing spot. Maybe it's an NFL job. I will see what that market looks like when it's all said and done. We'll see if there's another big college job that opens up. Shockingly, I would not be a bit surprised. Right now, I would say 65% chance he's back in Columbus.
64-3 versus non-playoff games and Michigan. He needs to go somewhere where he doesn't face Michigan.
Yeah. It's you got to win that game. I mean, it's everything. It's very similar to the John Cooper era. And I know I'm aging myself a little bit with that, but wins most of the games, just can't win the game that matters the most. And sooner or later, I mean, let's put this in perspective. Jim Tressel was 7-0 against Michigan his last 7 years at Ohio State. Then they had the 1 year where they had the interim coach, Luke Fickell. And then Urban Meyer went 7-0 against Michigan. So you basically go 14-0 against Michigan with your 2 coaches to 1-4. I mean, it is a significant downgrade. Ohio State fans not handling it well, nor should they handle it well.
But now they don't have to play a conference game. No? Do they?
No, no conference championship game.
Idle. Like, so how does this playoff mean? Like, isn't that an advantage now? Like, if your spot's secure, you get the time off?
There's a problem right now with the playoff, the way it's set up. I think some teams and even coaches like Lane Kiffin have hinted toward it that it might not be in your best interest to play in a conference championship game. And Ohio State gets a bye, and they're still sitting at number 3 in the title future odds. So all is not lost. And I agree with it. They should be 3rd or 4th in the future odds. Now I got to see the bracket. A lot's going to depend. Do they get a home game in the first round? Do they got to play on the road? Who are they playing? What's going to be the second round matchup? I know a lot of those questions that people like to ask me. I got to see the bracket because, I mean, there's a big difference between playing in Alabama or you end up playing UNLV or Boise State. So there's a 2 touchdown difference there.
So that brings up a good point. I know you were high on Ohio State last week, eventually versus what would have been the Oregon game. Is it a buy low spot? I mean, you probably want to see the bracket, but I mean, they're the number 3 betting favorite for the Natty at like plus 375, plus 400. You wait and see, or is there a way to get ahead of that?
It's a wait and see. Obviously, wasn't a good bet to bet Ohio State to win the Big Ten. Look, I didn't expect them to lose 3 touchdowns as a 3 touchdown home favorite against Michigan. No, I think it's wait and see. I got to see the bracket. If they, were to get an advantageous first round game, especially at home in the Horseshoe, then I'd be more inclined to bet it. But again, I'm going to have the boring answer. I think in theory, just money line rollover is going to end up paying out more because these teams are so tight. You're not going to be like a 14-point favorite in a game or two. Like we've seen in other times, forget the 12-team playoff. We've seen double-digit point spreads in the college football semifinals in a 4-team playoff. So we're not going to see that this year, especially when you get down to it. The top 5-6 teams are only separated by 3-4 points in my power ratings.
All right. Now I have to talk about Colorado. Apparently you college football people like to indulge in this content. Travis Hunter's locked up the Heisman. Pretty much it's done. Okay. Done. Sanders and him are the 2 betting favorites to go number 1 overall. Deion likely out. What does that do to the program with this kind of turnover looking towards next year?
Yeah, I don't know if Deion's officially going to be out yet. They've recruited well. So I think there's a decent chance, at least 50-50. If not, I would bet the yes that he's in Colorado next season. Again, it's going to depend on the Cowboys' job and some other stuff. But, I mean, obvious answer, they're going to be much worse. You lose the Heisman winner and a top 5 and the first quarterback taken, you're going to take a big step back. However, it's tough to evaluate in Colorado because half their team, if Deion stays, half their team isn't on the roster right now because he's going to go 40, 50 guys in the portal, and your guess is as good as mine. And even Colorado's a team you don't even have a handle on after spring. Oh, I got a handle. I watched their spring game. I mean, they're going to be okay. And then they'll bring in 20 or 30 guys after spring. So I learned my lesson. I am not going to be Mr. Optimism or certainly not Mr. Pessimism when it comes to Colorado. I don't know. So therefore, don't expect a lot of futures or season win total bets from me as long as Deion's at Colorado.
Cancel all mascots. Did you see the mascot fight? Was that like rivalry? Was that real? Do you think that mascot fight this weekend? Did you see that one?
I've seen a few of them before. There was one in Ohio State back in the day that was very real, and they pressed charges. Yeah, it was Arizona State. There's a mascot fight. Obviously, also there was about no exaggeration, 5 or 6 fights post game because of planting flags, and in the Arizona State game, yeah, you like that. That's college football.
Is that common? Like as someone who doesn't watch it, I was watching. I'm like, this kind of seems like I was taking the approach of some of the announcers, like the disrespect towards the programs in these situations. I don't know. It's probably nothing compared to what we saw in Al Shahir's hit versus Trevor Lawrence. Like I think that one's a lot worse than planting something in the ground.
Yes. It happens every year. We don't see 5 or 6 in one day. I can tell you that. So it is what it is. I mean, it's very much like European soccer as far as the fan bases, the passions. It's very tribal. That's what you get with college football.
9 conference championship games this weekend. No spread higher than 4.5. I wrote that, and then a game you wanted maybe moved from 4.5 to 5 right before you got in there. But everything's looking really tight. Obviously, 12 in. Couple quick questions before we get to the picks. Oregon 1, Texas 2. Texas wins, Oregon loses. Is there a swap there? Oregon pretty much locked into 1.
No, not at all. In fact, so if Oregon loses, they're down to 5 because I mean the top. This is another problem with the college football playoff. Is the top 4 conference champs get the top 4 seeds? They could be 12th as long as you're a conference champ. You're going to get that top 4 seed. So that's a mistake they're going to have to fix. So Colorado for Oregon. Yeah, Oregon, it's win, you're number 1. Lose, you're down to 5. If Oregon were to lose, then Texas most likely is that team that 99.5% that they're going to take the number 1 spot, unless Penn State destroys Oregon. Then Penn State would have an outside shot of getting the number 1 seed.
All right, so this is a good segue to one of your best bets. It's Alabama to make the playoffs, correct? Like, tell me if I'm wrong, if the number moved, or I'd hate to play this out and then something changes here at even money. But
even money, I think there's even
team,
money out
right?
there.
You talk about all of them fighting each other, and what happens at the top of this list? Alabama just gets to sit and watch.
Yeah, there's no other game that they can blow this week, so they're just sitting there and they're rooting for an upset or two. I'm here to tell you, they don't need upsets. In fact, if it just played out the form, and it won't, but just say, indulge me for a second. Say all the favorites won this week. Alabama's in. You just go off the AP poll, they're in. They're the 11th seed, probably playing at Notre Dame. So let's say it doesn't, and likely it's not going to happen. And it starts getting to be, is it Alabama versus this team? Who's in? I just go down to this. If it's, you're comparing Alabama to SMU, Alabama to Miami, it's a TV show, folks. There are billions, and I mean this, billions of dollars that ESPN paid for the playoff, and they have a specific deal with the SEC. Alabama's going to get the benefit of the doubt. I'm not going to say that there's some shenanigans going on, but I'm telling you, Alabama will get the benefit of the doubt over a team like SMU. So I like Alabama to make the playoffs, especially at even money.
So who could potentially leapfrog? Right now, ESPN has them at 11 in the mock. Can Iowa State win leapfrog? Like, who's the ability to knock them out of the top 12?
Yeah, and there's not many, honestly, because Iowa State, if they won, but Iowa State's going to get just the conference championship bid that the Big 12's automatically getting regardless. So they would not be taking Alabama's spot. The team that could was Clemson upsetting SMU. Clemson would get that spot, and then it'd come down to, do you pick Alabama or do you pick SMU? Again, this is why I like Alabama. I think it's the bigger brand. I like Alabama in that head-to-head matchup. So, no, there's not very many opportunities for teams to jump Alabama at this point, because the teams right behind them aren't playing either. Ole Miss, South Carolina, not playing. They beat South Carolina, so they got that feather in their cap, and didn't play Ole Miss, but Ole Miss has 3 losses, and Alabama's already ahead of them. Ole Miss is sitting at home. So, again, that's why I like the bet quite a bit. Alabama and even money.
As someone who doesn't know this very well, and I'm looking at these numbers, and I'm looking at who can move just from a handicap standpoint, it looks like to be a lot of outs for an even money proposition here. No?
Yep.
Yeah, it's nice to see when, here's Brad's plays. Okay, let's follow it. But when I'm sitting here looking at it, Miami falls, Miami and Clemson fall. So maybe that would be the only thing where maybe they don't fall as much as people think they are.
Yeah. I know it seems like, it's a surefire bet. I mean, I just tweeted about a surefire bet that I thought I made in the summer. It was my favorite bet of all time, and somehow found a way to lose. So I just think it should be like minus 150, minus 200. I know it's not a slam dunk, but there's not a significant pathway for these teams to jump on. Miami's not playing. It's not like they got another data point for them that they can jump Alabama. I mean, I'm assuming this assumption is that the college football playoff rankings that come out tomorrow night on Tuesday are going to be very similar with the AP poll, which they normally are. So that's the assumption here. I'm assuming that Miami falls below them. If Miami doesn't fall below them, then I don't have a positive EV bet.
All right, love it, absolutely love it. Let's go to the other one. We had some fun belt action. That's gone. We're going Tulane -4, correct?
Yeah, we're going to grade this, though, Mick. Let's grade this one at 4.5. Another move here, but here's why I like Tulane. And I did like Louisiana. It moved a point here in the last hour. So not that 5 was key. I still lean Louisiana. So if you need a little bit extra, that there's Louisiana out there. Reason right now on the board I like Tulane -4.5 as the best bet is obviously you're facing the option. They're playing at Army. They've already seen the option 2 weeks ago. How did Tulane do? They beat Navy 35-0. On top of it, this is in the weeds a little bit. Tulane's head coach, John Sumrall is his name. he went against Army the last 2 years while he was the head coach at Troy, totally suffocated the option. Army couldn't do anything, didn't even score 10 points in either game. So he has experience defending the option. They have a little bit of extra time because they played on Thanksgiving, so a couple extra days to prep. I also think it's a buy low spot. Tulane just played their worst game of the season. They lost outright as a 2-touchdown favorite against Memphis. Now the pressure's off as the playoffs. They're not getting to the playoffs. Now it's just go out there and win a conference championship, which is what John Summerall does as a coach. He's been a head coach twice, 2 years, 2 conference championships. He's an elite coach. And I just think I'm selling Army high. I mean, off of 2 games where they put a lot into the UTSA game and the Notre Dame game, and they got Navy on deck. So I don't think it's a great spot for Army. Tulane.
Talk to me about that December 14th game versus Navy. Like that turnaround, like, is that something they actually look at? Like, is this, I mean, it's obviously a championship game, but like not a lot of other teams have to turn around and play the following week.
No, they don't. It's very unique. It wasn't expected because Army's win total was 5.5 coming into the season. So they probably didn't expect to be playing in the American Championship game where they'd have to turn around and play Navy. Obviously advantageous for Navy when we talk that next week, that they're on a bye this week. So I wasn't expected. It's very unique. Probably anybody that doesn't follow college football, you're like, this makes no sense. This is mind-numbingly stupid. For a guy that loves it, we love the chaos, and the stuff that doesn't make sense just adds to the flavor of it, I guess.
All right, 2 plays in there now in Joe Osborne fashion. I got to ask you something, but it's not immediate sense, and I might be slightly throwing you under the bus because I haven't really prepped you for it, and I can talk around it a bit while you get your head on the question. But you've been in the betting space for a long time. You're a high volume guy. You know how to deal with swings. You know how to deal with a lot of things that other people don't in the industry, right? There's casual bettors. There's people like me who are slightly high volume bettors, but decent wagers. And then there's behind the curtain stuff that a lot of people don't know. And you don't start behind the curtain, right? You work your way to get there, and there's steps along the way to get there. What's one thing that you've learned over the years that has maybe helped you become more of a profitable bettor? Because it takes time. Like, you have to, it's almost impossible not to be a losing bettor in the beginning and make your way through it and learn from that process and become profitable long time.
Loaded question. We probably do a podcast on it. I think it's 3 things. It's money management, it's time management, and the thing that I think that I say unique, and those are 2 are obvious, ego management. It's okay you have to have ego. Especially when you're betting. You're betting the NFL on a Sunday, a side play. Basically, you're saying, hey, the whole world's wrong on the most liquid market in America, and I'm right. And not only am I right, I'm willing to lay -110 to say that I'm right. That takes ego. So that's fine. I mean, you could win that way. But you also have to obviously check your ego at the door, no matter how many years you've been in it, because the market and this industry is changing constantly, especially college football, where, I got to check my ego at the door because I went super high volume as far as win totals, and I had a losing year in win totals. I never had a losing win totals this year. There's so much more variance that maybe I got to check that ego, and instead of betting 100 win totals, maybe check that down to 50 and go with some things that are more certain and not rely on teams that are heavy transfer portal. So that's constant evolution that you can never be too high, never be too low. I know that's another obvious answer, but that helps you in the long run.
Yeah, and then add in the stress factor and money, like losing money, potentially losing money. Like it's a tough world. It absolutely is, but I appreciate you being honest with that. And like you said, it's a thing that you need to check yourself. If you get too big, it's a situation where you could be losing some money. So Brad, the man, one of the most respected people in the industry. Appreciate it, my friend. Thanks for jumping on a wild Monday, following maybe one of the biggest weeks that I had to follow. I'm like, is this normal for college football? Is this, are these games normal? Apparently they weren't. So let's go. Big weekend ahead. Appreciate you'll be back on the show this week with Joe, but I bid you adieu, pal. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
Yep. All right. Love asking people questions like that. You too. There you go. I'll ask you the same question, right? Yes, he's like, please don't ask me that question. Please don't ask me that question. And you let me know in the chat too. I see people putting it in there as well, right? Don't bet this stuff. Don't do that stuff. Like, Always stack line mates. Yes, there's some things that work and some things that don't. And like sometimes to learn that things don't work costs you money, sadly. Where are you in your path? I mean, you've expanded your unit size, John. I'll say that going into this year, but me and you bet very differently, right? I very high volume. You're like, here's like my 3 plays of the day kind of stuff, 3 to 4. And what have you learned in your path to become a better?
I'll double down on what he said because he didn't explain it, but he did say it. He said time management. I do think that's kind of where that 3 bets comes in. I do search for like what's my 3 best, and I feel like once I hit those 3 best, it's a way of me to like keep moving throughout my day. Because if I just keep going, I will just stay in the odds and I'll stay in the stats, and all of a sudden it'll be like 7 o'clock at night, and like
you've overdone it.
Right. So like at a certain point, it's like, okay, I did today. I found the 3 I like. And then it's like, you also kind of start to look towards tomorrow and like what's happening tomorrow and like watching film for tomorrow. And that has always helped me kind of keep moving from like a time management standpoint. So I do think he brought it up as one of his points. And I agree with that as for sure as something that I've improved on and kind of worked on it. And the money management for sure. Like being disciplined with the unit size and stuff. So
yeah, try to think of it like as a job. If you're trying to do that situation, like the amount of time that you're putting in, like, do you really want to put in like an hour worth of time into a $25 bet?
Yeah,
it's tough to do. And you can drown in the stats, and you can look in and you can look into matchups and like it, but then you're starting to look into stuff that might not be pertinent in the handicap to begin with, or stuff that's already priced in, and you're just kind of wasting time.
I think that's very important too with the time management. It's like you quickly start to learn like what do you value and like what am I going to look at and like does this matter to my bets? It's just a waste of time. Then you kind of really dial into like this is how I'm going to spend my time searching into this bet, and then I'm moving on type thing. Where like in the when you're 10 years ago, it's like I was probably doing a lot of research and it was just wasted time. Like it wasn't of value to the bets at all that I was making. So I think that's a big thing too in that time management. It's like, hey, what do I value and what am I looking at? And how can I maximize the hours I have to research, right?
Love it. Love it. NBA Cup, not so much. But hey, NBA Cup still playing. I messaged John. I'm like, hey, is the NBA Cup still on? He's like, yeah. I'm like, how long does this go for? He's like, a month. I'm like, how is that possible? It's like longer than, I don't know, it's like the European soccer conferences and stuff like that. You guys and your NBA betting are crazy. Since returning to the lineup, John, on November 8th, this is my attempt to be an NBA handicapper here. On November 9th, Zach LaVine is averaging 33 minutes and 4.8 assists per game. He's 6-6 to the over there. Over-under split. But the ceiling for a ladder is here. You got Zach LaVine, 4+ assists, -115 versus the Nets as a 7.5-point favorite. Highest total on the board, which is always nice too. Sell me, John. Sell me.
Yeah, so for Zach LaVine here, in the past, he's not really been much of a willing passer. He is much more of a scorer. And like this year, when you watch him play, I brought this up before. I think this is like our 3rd or 4th bet on him. He is much more of a willing passer when you watch him. When you watch the film, he's playing the Nets. The Nets are injured. Ben Simmons is out. Dorian Finney-Smith is questionable. Those are your 2 like better defenders. They just started Dennis Schroeder and Jalen Wilson in their backcourt last game. Those are 2 guys who are all offense and no defense. Jalen Wilson gets pulled from games because he can't defend. So when you're talking about like Zach LaVine going head to head on them, I just think he's going to be able to control the game. He's going to be able to get in the lane. It really just comes down to, is LaVine going to pass? And if LaVine comes into this game and he's willing to set up his teammates, he can do it all night. And what I really liked about this bet was, we have an edge at this number, assuming Kobe White does play, but Kobe White is questionable. He missed practice yesterday. So if he sits out, now it's like Zach LaVine takes over like that usage and that minutes. It's very much more secure for LaVine. And that would provide an additional boost to this bet. It's not that you need it, but it's potentially there. So I like it at this number with Kobe White playing, but if Kobe White sits out, it just takes another boost to this bet.
So the floor's good, right? Love those floor ones where you don't have to worry too much about it. It's good now, but it could be better later. So it's always nice to get those ones early. One more play from the ass man here. New Orleans, Atlanta. New Orleans, 10-point dog. 229 total. Dejounte Murray, over 20.5 points, -106. Talk to me, bud. Talk to me.
Yeah, so this is BYB points prop. So I went to Dejounte Murray. He's He's going back to Atlanta. He played with Atlanta the last couple of years. To me, this is very, like, when you're talking about betting on numbers and stuff, it's like projections, it's historical data. I feel like this is one of those spots that's going to be really, really hard to price it based off of that, because this is a personal rivalry for sure against Atlanta. They traded him away. It didn't work out there. And he was very critical of the defense of Trae Young as well. And that's probably going to, Dyson Daniels will probably be the guy guarding him, but he's going to want to go after this Hawks team. And they're just not playing well. The Pelicans are down bad. They have a lot of injuries. And Murray's not scoring a lot of late, but he's taken 17 field goal attempts his last 3 games. He's just not making shots. So, I mean, the attempts are there. He's just not making them. So when you're talking about 20 and a half and you're taking 17 shots a game, and if you've never seen DeJounte Murray play, he is not afraid to call his own number. He will go out. He can go out. I think he had a game against the Celtics last year. He shot 40 times. I mean, he will shoot the ball. So if it's personal for him and he wants to attack this Hawks defense, he's going to get the shots up. So I just thought 20 and a half, I thought that was a little too low considering the spot specifically for DeJounte Murray.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Oh, I was just going to recap everything. Producer Mick, you're the best. Football tonight. Down in Denver, down in Colorado. Jordan Akins, 30+, going big. The Blitz released the 11.5. I like the 30 here, plus 310. Devon Vele over 34.5 receiving yards, too, minus 115. And then John went big. Quarterback, receiver touchdown stack on big numbers, 100 and 325, plus 2,500. Levine assist, 4+ of them, minus 115. And Murray for 20.5 points. And Brad's plays were Tulane. We got Tulane, I believe that was minus 4.5. And then Alabama to make the playoffs at even money. And I mean, he was talking about it, and I'm just looking at the standings, projected standings, and I just love that angle of it's Alabama. Like, if there's a coin flip, it's like if there's like a choice between this team or that team, probably going to take Alabama. No, same thing with if it was an Aaron Rodgers Comeback Player of the Year award and the media was voting on it, they would probably not vote for him.
Yeah, everyone always gets upset that it's Alabama, but I mean, if they were to play the games, Alabama probably is the better team of those teams going in. Like, even when it was a 4-team playoff, people just didn't want to see them in the playoff because they're like sick and tired of watching them play. But the reality is they are one of the better teams in all of college football. And like he said, it's a TV show. They make money. Their fans travel. Their fans spend money. They'll sell out stadiums. People will watch. It's a big deal with Alabama. So also answer it in the chat here. He said DeJounte Murray over 19.5 points, minus 125. It's pretty similar when you consider like 20.5 minus 105. It's pretty close EV-wise. So you can go either way on that one. You can take the 19.5 if you want.
Sounds great. One fact check that I picked up on myself because I wrote all my notes. I think I said Ray Days when it's actually Ryan Day without the S. Nailed it.
You could tell he was confused.
Like, who is he talking about? Yeah, there was an awkwardness with that one, but that one I tried my best. Gone now, Mr. Kirk says. And King Book says, no, don't say that. Go Vols. Maybe not. But your number is gone now. So way to go, John. Ray he could be the drunk brother. And that's who I was, obviously. Ray Days is fitting. Ray, thank you, Cheeseburger Eddie. Yeah, thanks. And thanks for no one picking up on that and kicking me while I was down in the chat. So Monday in the books before you bet. Tomorrow, Hitman, John, continue. Big Joe's back. And Joe's back. And no, he's not sad because Miami lost. Just a day off for the man who's running hot. So hopefully he's back tomorrow. Things are good. And make sure to get the Hitman because he'll have some great futures as always. And I'm still riding his San Francisco team total under 11.5 from early in the year. And that looks like a layup right now. So appreciate everybody there in the chat. We'll leave it at that, Johnny. Before you bet on covers presented by BetMGM. Monday, December 2nd in the book. See you back here tomorrow noon. Appreciate y'all.